Hello, and welcome back to the Delve podcast. I'm Allie. I'm a staff therapist here at Delve Psychotherapy of Chicago.
And I'm Adam. I'm the executive and clinical director at Delve Psychotherapy of Chicago.
Here at Delve Psych, we offer individual, couples, group, and family therapy. Reach out to us for a free consultation call at delvepsych.com. That's DELVEPSYCH.com. And we're writing some really awesome blog posts, and you can check them out at delvepsych.substack.com. Just a reminder, we're not trying for fame here. We don't plan on running ads, so it's really listener friendly for you guys. Our whole purpose for this podcast is just to try to add value and be helpful to as many people as possible. So if you find this podcast episode of value to you, share it with at least one other person.
Yeah, please help us spread the word if you could, please.
We'd love it. We'd very much appreciate it. Gosh, so thinking of like what to talk about in today's podcast episode, in working with Adam as my supervisor when I was in training, there's just so many different like interesting takes he had on things.
That makes it sound like you didn't entirely agree with all of them, which you don't have to.
No, they certainly give me pause. And I think it took me a while to try to form my own opinion on what you had to say, but but I thought it could be interesting to get into some of those ideas.
I do want to say, by the way, over the weekend, I saw one of my best friends who's also a psychologist who had taken in a little bit of this content so far. And I think her response was also like, nah! sometimes. So, but it's okay. It's okay if not everything hits for everybody. Part of what I love about psychology is that I do think of this much more as a philosophy, as a philosophical discipline, much more than it is a scientific one. I love the science part, talk about the science stuff all day long. But I think we're engaged in philosophy. And philosophy says, hey, what if we look at it from this perspective or that perspective or that perspective? And just kind of looks for shifts in perspective. And I think that, too, then can map on to the way that we engage clients, where my take is that there isn't one way or one tool. My take is very much that we can offer this way of thinking or that way of thinking. And one of them may end up leading to a sense of direction for the client. They don't all have to, and there's not a one size fits all. So anyway, yeah.
No, I definitely see that in working with you, this sort of like philosophical approach to the field. A lot of times you'll just like pull out of your back pocket, like, well, the Buddhists say this or the Stoics say this. And so, yeah, it's very interesting.
That might be about to happen, by the way. Knowing what's coming.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so the first topic that I think could be really interesting to talk about and for everyone listening to hear is your take on the pursuit of happiness. A lot of times clients will be like, well, I just want to be happy. How do I be, I don't want to be depressed anymore. I don't want to be sad anymore. I just want to be happy. And I think there's like in the general zeitgeist too, like this idea of like this like toxic positivity, and like there is sort of this like message that it's like you can work out your life so that you are always happy all the time, and that should be the goal. Yeah, so I'm just kind of want to like, I want everyone to hear kind of your take on this idea of happiness and being happy.
Yeah, I just wrote down 5 notes.
Okay, great.
So, here's our episode, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting, the way that you wrote it in our show notes was my take on happiness, and then the way you just phrased it was my my take on the pursuit of happiness. I find those to be 2 very different things. One of them very happy, one of them very healthy, and one of them much more kind of impossible. So, like,
Yeah.
Firstly, the Buddhist take on happiness is really one of the ones that I find most intriguing, that happiness is a thing that happens sometimes. That if you live your life, there are moments in which you are likely to experience happiness. And even people amidst tragedy, or in some of the most impossible situations, terrible situations ever, amidst a war or something of that nature, two buddies turn next to one another, one of them cracks a joke, and they laugh, belly laugh for 5 minutes. We're still in a war.
Yeah.
And so I love thinking about happiness less as an end point and much more as a thing that's going to happen sometimes. And I try to encourage people too to not cling. Don't chase, but also don't cling. If you're trying to achieve happiness as an outcome, then you're going to be very disappointed when it goes away.
Mm.
And I've had clients many, many, many times say, I worked for this for 15 years. I tried to get to this point. I wanted to be, a C-suite, or I really just wanted to buy my house, or whatever else, whatever the outcome was, and then I'll be happy. They get there, and they are for a minute, because happiness is a thing that happens sometimes, and then it floats away,
Yeah.
and then it's Tuesday. And we just have to deal with Tuesday. All of the things that we were already experiencing, all of the stressors we already had, all of the biases that we brought into our own personal psychology are still there. Achieving something, getting married, for instance, doesn't make that personal psychology stuff go away.
Yeah. I similarly, in my work as an actor, it was like, I hear people say, well, once I become a series regular, then I'll be happy. Once I achieve X, then I'll be happy. And like you said, like happiness is like transient. It doesn't just stay. And other life happens. You don't just when I get married and then I'll be happy. That marital bliss doesn't just stay like that forever. You're going to face problems. You're going to face different aspects of your life are not going to go as planned, and you're going to have to deal with that. So yeah, it's sort of like like you said, like the pursuit or the achievement of happiness. You can't really fully achieve it, I guess. I don't know.
You can't achieve it because it's not an end state.
Yeah.
It's just a transient thing that occurs sometimes. And you're kind of making the argument don't cling on to happiness because eventually bad things will happen. That's part one for sure. But there's a part two, which is remember that all of your own difficulties, psychological difficulties, are going to go with you into this happy moment, and they'll be there when you get to the other side of it. So some actors, not all, I'm not disparaging the acting community in any way, but some actors get into acting because they really are kind of desperately seeking the approval of others.
Yeah.
So they struggle in the moments when they're not getting cast, when they don't have the fame, because they're not getting the approval of others. But then when they get the approval of others, they still have that need to get the approval of others. And so then you end up just needing the approval of more others, or you need the approval of others again, and again and again and again and again and again. The person that needs that is still there. And so that's why achieving something doesn't make it go away. There was still a personal psychology involved in constructing a worldview and mentality that I need that. And if I still need that, there's nothing that will satiate it. You will never get to a point where you've got that satiated. You really do have to learn how to not need that.
Yeah, because I imagine the approval feels good for about 2 seconds, and then you're like, okay, well, more. I need more. When's the next source of approval going to come from? So the last thing you said, learning to not need it. How do we do that?
I don't know about how exactly. I mean, I think it's a long, arduous process, but it also kind of ties into several of the other ideas on this on my little worksheet here, my workflow. I mean, if we're not trying to achieve happiness, what are we trying to achieve? And that is a thing that I've tormented my own mind with quite a lot, because I'm in the business of psychology. Psychology is in the business of change. We're trying to change, help people change towards something. What are we trying to help them change toward? What the hell is the point of anything? Why are we doing any of this? If not to achieve happiness, which is, by the way, we have on our intake questionnaire something like, how will you know when you're better, so to speak. It's worded better than that, but how will you know when you're done with this work? And a common response is just something like, when I feel better, or when I'm happy, when I can be happy. And it's like, it's not really achievable. It's helpful for us to know that that's the mentality, right? But like, if not that, then what? I'm actually going to put a pin in that and maybe try to come back to it and make some other arguments first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I struggle with that too, because then what is it? Is it like fulfillment? Is that what we're after? Like feeling fulfilled with like the career we have, I don't know, the relationships we have? Like, is that achievable?
Oh, we should do an episode on self-determination theory. I'm going to put that in future topics right now. The other thing that I want to get into before we come back to trying to answer that question more is this idea of, why do we have this toxically positive view? Where does that come from? And partially, I want to indicate that if we are in the US, a deeply individualistic, capitalistic culture, then we've been taught, we've been shown that outcomes achieve happiness. Take this pill, then you'll dance on the beach. Buy this hair dryer, and then you'll have the biggest smile on your face. We see the imagery of happiness constantly through the very effective advertising. There's an ability within the advertising industry to capture a moment, capture an essence, capture a feeling, and to deliver that to a consumer and link that to a product. And in so doing, firstly, they're utilizing some pretty crafty psychology to do so. And we could talk about the psychology of persuasion sometime. That's part of our didactic series. But in so doing, we're also teaching the public that certain outcomes will achieve certain emotional states, and then that's the end of the commercial. So then the commercial's over, and all we know is that whoever person who never got a name ended up being happy. She's still dancing on the beach.
100%. It's like, buy this purse and suddenly all your problems will go away, and you'll be the cool, popular girl that you always wanted to be, and you'll be happy and loved by everyone.
Right.
Yeah.
And it goes across all of the different forms of advertisement as well. We need to know that not only is that happening through advertising, but it also happens through just having a capitalistic system itself. Even narratives like saving for retirement is, at some point you're going to retire. So that's an endpoint. You need to have a good, deep plan for that retirement so that then you can be happy when you are in your retirement. I know of many men who have pushed and pushed and pushed in their careers as hard as they can, following the kind of stereotypic male productivity identity to make sure that their kids get to go to school. Their family is provided for, that provider narrative that so many men follow. And we're taught to them, especially through the 50s, 60s, 70s.
Yeah.
And that they need to save for retirement, and then they can go to the Netherlands. And I remember watching this incredible documentary called The Barkley Marathons. I highly recommend it to everybody. What's going on over in the Smokies is wild. It's all about this this trail racing, this like super exclusive, extremely difficult trail race in the middle of the Smoky Mountains. But in the documentary, one of the participants, one of the runners, says, my dad followed that model: save for retirement, then you can have fun.
Yeah.
Fun is for later. And he died, mere years before he was able to retire. The dad died. And it's like, your life is now, and your life is an ongoing momentary thing that is occurring right now. I see this in graduate students all the time, where the graduate student, especially in a PhD program like the one that I came from, is long.
Yeah.
And you can get trapped in this mentality of like, oh, when I graduate, then I'll be happy. Problem is, when you graduate, you still need to do postdoc. Okay, well, when I finish postdoc, then I'll be happy. When you finish postdoc, you got to study for the EPPP. Okay, well, when I finish the EPPP, then I'll be happy. Problem is, when you finish the EPPP, you still need to build your caseload and your practice and figure out where you're going to go in your life. And yes, things do improve, and people will give you a little more money at each of those stages. And certain things do get better along the way, get easier along the way, but other things get harder.
Right.
And I want to encourage everyone listening here, rather than thinking about happiness being a destination that happens later, think of it so much more as a temporary state that you need to work on and work toward right now.
Yeah. And it can be so hard to, like, especially because I just finished my master's program, like, just reminding yourself that, like, okay, like, life is still happening in the middle of this program, and like allowing myself to still, like, take some time for self-care, for enjoyment, for building of my relationships and tending to the things that matter, because those things are still happening. And then after I got out of my master's program, I was like, okay, yeah, like in the throes of like, okay, I got to build this caseload now, and I'm working a lot of hours, and trying to live in the city. It's expensive, and so there's other things now, so it's just like it's like a different kind of stressful, a different kind of busy. But I understand why, especially for people in like graduate programs, it's like it's so hard to, like, because it could be easy to just be like, okay, well, especially my program was really fast, it was really accelerated, it was like 2 years on the dot, and it was like, okay, well, you could just, like, maybe I could just put my head down and power through those 2 years and not care about anything else or do anything else. But I'd imagine you'd get pretty burnt out that way. So.
And there are times when you need to do that.
Of course, yeah.
We haven't really ever talked about productivity and motivation on here. I'm gonna throw that on the future topics episode. But I have this 85% rule for trying to complete something, which is if you're working on a project and it is less than 85% done, then you generally want to come to it when you yourself have some kind of more automatic drive, or intrinsic motivation would be the technical term. Generally come to it when you've got that intrinsic drive to work on it, if it's less than 85% done. If it's at or above 85% done, I don't care whether you want to work on it. Sit your ass down and work on it. You have to get it across the finish line, and to finish projects is much harder than starting, or much harder than getting them to the majority of completion. And they're actually tying into identity from the last episode. There's some identity related reasons why that happens. So, but anyway, I think a lot about if you're talking about graduate school, you sort of need to build a way of being in graduate school that balances a certain amount of toil, a certain amount of just put your head down and do it responsibility, and a general way of working on these things, a process, so to speak, of working on these things. But then when you get near the end, put your head down and get it done. Don't be one of those that ends up like, they call it like all but dissertation, ABD. Don't be an ABD. Get it done. You got to get it across the finish line. So yeah, getting a project to 85% is easier than finishing the last 15.
That makes total sense to me, though. Throughout my childhood, I had this like notorious habit of like I would get all these exciting ideas that I was like I loved writing stories, but I would start so many different chapter books, and I would write like the first chapter or two, and then I would throw it away and then start a new one. I would never finish any book that I started.
That's how Tolkien wrote. Tolkien basically wrote and wrote and wrote until he was he got himself written into a corner. Then he would check everything away and restart. But he started the same story over and over again. You don't have to. You don't have to necessarily. I love the idea of I've got 10 projects and I just kind of pick whichever one to work on in whatever moment. That's fine until they get to 85%.
Then you got to finish. Yeah.
Then you are not allowed to look at any of the rest of them. You have to get them across the finish line. I just rebuilt our website's homepage, which is way harder than even I realized, probably threw 25 hours into that or something of that nature. But it's so easy when it is almost done and everything is pretty much in place to be like, good enough. You can't. You got to spend that last little bit of time when you're already done with it, you've moved on in your head, etc. You've got to spend that last little bit of time, that last 15%, just getting the shit right. You have to do it. And your like motivation is irrelevant. Sit your ass down, do it.
Yeah, definitely. So are you ready to get back to the question of like what should we be pursuing?
Now I feel ready.
Okay.
I've spent a lot of time thinking about this, and because at the end of the day, I need to be able to defend what the hell the point of psychology and psychotherapy even is. And I have two ways of thinking about it. So firstly, I think we are in the emotions business first and foremost. If other people have other lanes, ours is emotion. And then what do we need to be doing with emotion? If happiness is a okay thing that happens sometimes, but it's not a thing that we can cling to and we must hold on to. If suffering is a thing that we will experience from time to time, some of us more than others and for longer periods of time than anybody should ever have to. But if these are things that are going to happen, then what the hell do we do with the emotion? One line of thinking is we should regulate it. Les Greenberg, who we talked about in the Kara episode, when Kara Breitzman was on with us, Les Greenberg would use the language of regulating emotion, but that sort of gives this idea that we are changing or modulating the emotion itself. And I don't think we're that powerful. Honestly, even the way that Les Greenberg talks about emotion, I think we're more in line in terms of idea than in language. I just don't like the language of regulation because it makes me feel like we've gone into like affective God mode or something like that. Like we can control the emotion. We can't control them. They happen to us and then we respond.
Right.
So if not that, I think what we need to be doing ultimately is building a relationship with these emotions. So rather than how do I stop being depressed, it's how do I operate within my experience of depression as a temporary thing that I will temporarily experience in a moment. And the goal is not to stop being depressed. I have this whole conversation with clients over and over and over again. They're like, I'm depressed. I say, how do you want to be depressed? And they'll say, I want to not be depressed. I'm like, it's not a choice. You are depressed. So how do you want to be depressed? How do you want to do this thing? And then they might say some things, but I'll say, okay, so why do you want to do those things? To not be depressed. Damn it, no. You can't go down this path of I want to rid myself of a negative emotion or I want to cling to a positive emotion. That's emotional reactivity. And the more reactive we are to it, the more that our drive, our motivation, and our actions will all be centered toward trying to change the emotion, which I just argued we're not that powerful. So we can't. Rather than trying to change the emotion or cling to the emotion, what I argue is that we ought to be driving toward our goals, our needs, and our values. And what that will ultimately achieve is basically just equanimity, a comfort with emotions, a comfort with good ones, a comfort with bad ones, that doesn't necessarily drive our decisions away from the things that we ultimately care about. I know you like this metaphor that I've offered in the past, but so if I say that Granny is my favorite person in the whole wide world, I love Granny. She's my absolute favorite person in the whole wide world, but she lives on that island over there, and I'm scared of bridges. It used to be the case that Granny would come over to the mainland and we'd spend our days together, but Granny's getting older. Her hip doesn't kind of work in the same way anymore. And she just got the news that she's basically not going to be able to leave the house anymore. So Granny has to stay over on the island, and I'm scared of bridges. If I'm operating in terms of reactiveness to emotion, I do not want to feel bad things and I only want to feel good things, then the answer is obvious. Don't go see Granny. She's gone. You might say, well, we could get her on an iPad. Granny's not that great at operating iPads. You end up looking at the ceiling most of the time. It's not the same. She accidentally hangs up on you. She can't call you back. It's not the same as being with Granny, really in real person. So if we were reactive to the emotion, that fear of bridges or heights would be the thing to operate on. Don't go see Granny. That relationship's dead to me. I don't think anybody listening to this would think that that's a good idea. So what we can do instead is say, what's more important here? This relationship matters to me. It matters a lot to me, and I need to act like it matters to me, which means that I may need to carry my fears with me while I cross the daggone bridge. I go over it because she matters to me, because I choose to. And in that way, we end up operating much more in accordance with our goals, our needs, and our values, rather than our emotional reactions. I also add proclivities, just like the things we tend to do, or have been doing, and our wants. What I want to do is very different than what I might need out of life, or what I'm intending to do in life as a goal, or what I truly value at a deep level in life.
Yeah. No, I do love that metaphor a lot. And a lot of times working with clients, it's like, okay, well, I feel depressed. I don't feel like doing this thing that is important to me. So how do I feel better so that I can go do this thing? It's like, no, like feel depressed and go do the thing that matters anyway.
Absolutely. And I think that we can get caught in believing that I have to feel a particular way in order to go and do a thing.
Right.
No, you don't. I would talk to, when I was doing college counseling, I would talk to math majors, for instance, and they'd say, I'm not motivated. And I was like, really? You're not motivated for calculus? Shocking. What are you expecting? That at some point you're gonna be walking down the sidewalk and be like, man, I really want to do some derivatives. Like, that's not, even a math major is not gonna be like gunning for derivatives. It's not how it works.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to work on their dissertation. And if you do, it's gonna be this temporary transient thing. Then you work on it for a little while and then you stop being motivated to work on it. Because motivation isn't a thing that you like happens to you. It's a thing that you create out of your actions. You manifest it by doing things. You create it. Your actions are the building blocks of motivation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of people have that backwards, that they're waiting to feel the motivation in order to do the thing, versus taking that first step themselves, which is hard sometimes to take that first step when you're not feeling like it. Yeah, I'm not gonna like deny that, but how much momentum and motivation can come from like taking that first step.
How motivated were we to do the podcast this morning, right? We're on episode 14. It's not new anymore. It's early morning. I know you're traveling later.
I'm gonna go on a plane soon. Yeah.
We're sleepy, we're busy, but now are we motivated?
Oh, yeah.
Where the hell did that come from?
Well, I have an answer to that. I think in talking in this conversation, it's getting me really excited and really passionate about like making this a good episode, because I think these are topics that are really important and helpful. And I think this is a really awesome conversation. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's how that works, right? Like you end up creating the motivation out of your actions. Man, we definitely need to have that productivity and motivation episode, which we already started to. But
I just kind of want to like get back more to this idea though of like, because I can imagine you get a lot of resistance though when you say to people, it's not about not feeling depressed, it's about how you want to go about feeling depressed. Because I'd imagine clients could be like, well, what am I doing in therapy then? Like, I thought this whole point of this thing was to not feel bad. Like, isn't that the goal here? Isn't that what we're doing?
well, and now we've outlined the argument that equanimity is ultimately the end goal, or I also like to say, building a self-efficacy around your ability to have a relationship with your emotions. I know that's a lot, but like I care very much about all of those words.
Yes.
So having some belief that you can handle the emotions as they come, having some belief that you can do something toward the life you mean to live, regardless of what you're feeling. I saw an Instagram post recently that was all about this idea of like the person that is doing pretty well in life and generally is contented in life, which I concede is a synonym of happy, but the person that tends to be sort of okay psychologically is the one that is sort of okay regardless of what happens, right? Like a bad thing happens and they find a way to be okay with themselves and the people around them. Or a good thing happens and they don't necessarily get, clingy to that or desperate for it or, chasing of it a second time. They just kind of tick through life, working on what they mean to work on, pursuing the things they're trying to pursue, and being in the present moment as they mean to be, connected with purpose, connected with direction, connected to people. I think that's hard to sell to people because of the context within which we live. Buy this product, then to be happy. Only find people who bring you joy, etc.
Right. Or and even just like on social media, just the pictures, how people paint themselves on social media, that they only always feel joy and ecstatic and confident. And boy, if we could see behind closed doors with those influencers, right?
Well, and that can even be unintentional. I remember I used to live right on the lake here in Chicago, and I happened to be up really, really, really early one morning, to the extent that like right over the lake, I was able to get this beautiful shot of the sunrise. It's like the sun is straight out from me over the water, and it's just bright pink. So I snapped this photo and I threw it up on, I don't know, Instagram or something of that nature. And I heard from somebody sometime later that they had that kind of reaction to me, where it's like, oh, what this beautiful sunrise morning, and you seem so productive and you're up at that hour and all that kind of stuff. They didn't know that I was up at that hour because I couldn't sleep because I was having a really bad day the night before. And so you can't sort of imagine what goes into somebody even being in that blissful moment. But then simultaneously, I do think that I was being very responsive to that bad day and difficult sleep.
Definitely.
Okay, I'm going to get up and I'm going to start my day as best I can. And then when I've got this moment to see that sunrise, I'm going to take a second and enjoy it, even though I'm still having a bad day. And now I'm having a sleepy bad day.
Yeah. Something that came to mind too when you were describing the person who seems like they're I don't know how to say it. Psychologically, they're doing okay. I wonder too if it comes with this level of like acceptance that like I am gonna have some painful moments sometimes. I am gonna suffer sometimes. And what's that? Isn't there a quote that you say about like realizing that like life involves some amount of like suffering?
I mean, that's definitely, I don't know the exact quote we're thinking of, but I think Epictetus, one of the Stoics, was on about suffering. I mean, the Stoics were all about suffering, the inevitability of suffering and the acceptance of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the Stoic philosophy was one that just tried to meet the present moment as best it could. And I mean, really, it is the bones of this philosophy that I'm outlining. Like, have a sense of purpose, work on it. Doesn't matter what you feel. What does matter about the emotions themselves and the way that we want to go about honoring them isn't behavioral, it's emotional.
Mm-hmm.
We want to experience the emotions, we want to process the emotions, we want to use them to create art, we want to honor them and bond with others around them, and make sure that we have support for them, but we don't want them to make our choices for us. And I think that the Stoics were really the ones that outlined that philosophy. I would be interested in exploring the history prior to the Stoics, because certainly they were drawing on other philosophies too. I don't know as much about the history on that front. If anybody does, please let us know and we'll dig into that.
That could be really interesting to delve into. Any last thoughts you have on this topic of happiness?
I think I'm good on that one.
All right. Well, you have a new quote up there, and it sort of flipped a common phrase, flipped it the opposite way. Don't just do something, stand there.
Yeah.
I could be totally wrong on this, but my thoughts are perhaps it's about not just reactively doing something without intentionally responding. So it's okay to stand there and make a thoughtful choice.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Nailed it. If you remember, one of the exercises we often have people do when they're going through a breakup, we talked about this in the breakup episode, is write the letter to the person.
Mm-hmm.
Don't send it. Why don't we send it? Because our own psychology is going to change over time. And what we can do is sit with the emotions, hang on to the emotions, and don't just reflexively do something with them, kind of like we've been talking in this episode. We don't want to engage in emotional reactions. They'll affect our lives and they'll affect our pursuit of our goals, our needs, and our values. It's far better in many a circumstance to take a second, don't do anything, and just be present. How the hell do you do that? I mean, imagine in the midst of an argument with a partner, rather than making your counter argument or running away or shutting everything down, which will have a big effect on your life going forward. What if instead of doing that, you just sort of say, like, I'm not sure what to do right now, but while I'm thinking about it, I just want to be with you.
Wow. That pause can make all the difference.
And I constantly see, especially my fellas in cishet relationships, constantly see their partner brings up a problem. They're like, all right, how do we solve this? Why don't I just reflexively apologize? Why don't we figure out how to make sure that we get the hole in the wall filled because I punched the nail through it or whatever? Like, just reflexively trying to fix it rather than staying put and staying present, especially with the other person.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love that. And that's really clever. That flipped phrase. It's very clever.
I don't remember where I got that one from, but it's not mine. But yeah.
Okay.
Doing is overrated.
It is. It is. Well, Adam, this has been a lovely chat. I hope you all listening gleaned some good insight in this conversation. As always, we offer individual, couples, group, and family therapy. You can visit delvepsych.com to book a consultation. That's DELVEPSYCH.com. Check out our Substack, where we write a bunch of awesome blog posts, delvepsych.substack.com. And if you found value in this podcast episode, we do ask that you share it with at least one other person to give them value as well.
Thank you so much, Allie.
Thanks, Adam. See you next time.
Have a good flight.
Thank you.